Hello, welcome everybody to Merlini's Mailbag episode number 12, Components of a Lineup. And this week I will be discussing the checks, balances, and intricacies of a 5-hero roster. And to start off, this is a very basic rudimentary guide and is of course theory grafting a little bit, but don't just think in black and white. And there are many heroes that overlap these so-called components that we'll speak of. But there's a lot of gray area in Dota, and hero lineup is no different. So again, don't try and set yourself in one rigid way of thinking. Being flexible is a very important part of Dota, and it comes in thinking as well as the ability to play multiple heroes. So I will move on to the actual question. Whoops. So this week's question was, hey Merlini, I recently started playing Captain's Mode with my friends, and I usually end up being the one drafting. I really like to theorize about lineups or hero combinations, but in reality I'm a noob drafter, and when we lose a game, I often feel like it's my fault because I picked incorrectly. I watch pro games, I talk strategies with my friends, and I understand hero rules, but I feel like there is something about drafting that still eludes me. Could you please elaborate a bit on drafting? What you should look out for when drafting, what individual aspects of heroes you have to understand, what's the idea behind each phase of band pick, and how not to be utterly outpicked in general. By the way, I really love your stream and what you're doing for the community. It helps me a lot. Thanks and keep up the good work. So, I broke it down into 6 different components for a lineup. And starting from the leftmost side, which I will be going over first, late game, space creators, teamfight/initiation, support/utility, situational picks, and counter picks. So this is like the top 4 are the core 4: late game, space creators, teamfight, and supports. But as you get more and more advanced of a player, you will want to deal with situational picks and with counter picks. So drafting is a very complex part of Dota, and I won't be going too much into it. Again, I won't be answering all of this question, but I'll pretty much just explain how I viewed a lineup and the strengths and weaknesses, and again, checks and balances. And if you overload on too many of these, you'll always be lacking in others. So you always have to balance these core 4, and then once you are advanced enough to incorporate these 2 in, you can add those into your repertoire. So for each one, I will be giving a quick 1-sentence thing of what exactly these things should do and a couple of heroes. So late game is the most obvious one and the most that pub players are probably familiar with. And their primary role, to make good use of farm and space created. And the best 2 examples that I could think of are Phantom Lancer and Anti-Mage. They are just absolute beasts with items. They can just kill supports in a matter of like tenths of seconds once they get sufficient farm, and pretty much just 1v5 a team if you just let them farm for 30 minutes straight. There's not really too much that I need to elaborate on this besides don't focus too much on late game and try not to skimp out on it, especially if you are a beginner drafter. So the second one that lends more discussion are space creators. And again, 1 sentence to sum up what they do: to apply pressure all around the map, and emphasis on all. And if you're ever playing a game and you know that there's this area that you shouldn't be going to, you just have this alarm going off in the back of your head: I shouldn't go in this area, it's dangerous, or I should really watch out. It's usually because of one of these heroes. And these just pretty much create like invisible boundaries in the map of where you should and shouldn't go. And the larger space that you have for your team and the more that you can work with, the better you can move around the map, the more you can farm. So this is a very abstract thing of Dota, and not too many people talk about it, but it is a very important part. So early game space creators are Chen, Enchantress, and Vino. These heroes can do stuff at level 1, and they can apply pressure all around the map. In opponent's jungle, your own jungle, all 3 lanes, triple lanes, solo lanes, they can just do everything. And you really need to be aware of what these heroes are capable of, especially in capable teams such as LGD or Na'Vi. Puppy has a really good Chen Enchantress, and LGD really makes use of Chen Enchantress. And these heroes just create havoc all around the map, and sometimes they just set you back so far that you can't recover from it. So they apply pressure, and if you don't react accordingly, you're going to lose. And the mid-game space creators are the ever so fearsome Wisp and Nyx, very top tier picks in competitive Dota. And they pretty much, you just have to constantly be scared of them. You always have to be scared of the Wisp, obviously +1, Wisp +1 gank, as well as the Nyx +1 gank, and you can't roam around the map like you're free normally just because of these two heroes, unless you're some imbalanced hero like Nyx and can just rage TP. But in general, you really have to be scared, and it's solely because these two are such great space creators. They just apply pressure all around the map. Sometimes you don't even need to be there, is the thing with these two heroes. Even if you don't kill someone with Nyx, they still have to be scared of you. Even if you're farming neutrals, they're like, well, there still could be a Nyx ganking me, and they still have this like invisible barrier that they can't really cross, or else they have to be scared for their life. And that's exactly what space creators do. And in general, it is the two roles' job to do that. Two role is generally the mid role: Magnus, Templar Assassin, Queen of Pain, Storm Spirit, Puck. All these are very good at picking off weak solo heroes that are out of position. Whether you're a carry or you're a support, you can generally die to these heroes if you are out of position. And these pretty much just kind of mold where you can move around the map and what you're free to do around the map. So this is a very important role. Again, generally the two role, but part of the core four. The next one is Teamfight/Initiate. Eventually, you're going to have 5-on-5s. So the goal of Teamfight/Initiate is simple: to win the inevitable 5-on-5s. And the two best heroes I think that I could theorycraft that are best for these is Magnus and Darkseer. If you hit a 5-man RP, it's pretty much just you win the team fight right there. And same with Darkseer. If you hit a 5-man vacuum wall, you just win the team fight right there. I guess Enigma falls into it, although he's a little bit harder to play, but even if you win the lanes and even if you have late game and you have good farm, there comes a point where the other team will usually push you and force a 5-on-5 engagement. If you don't have enough 5-on-5 heroes, for example, too many gankers, if you have like Nyx and Bounty Hunter, for example, those are relatively weak in 5-on-5, you're probably going to lose if the other team has like Tidehunter and Magnus with Refresher and Tidehunter with Refresher and all these ridiculous spells. So you really need to have a couple of team fights. It's not always the case that you need a couple of these, but in general, you don't want to lack on these. So again, part of the core four. Pretty self-explanatory. I think most people know what team fight is and what heroes are very good at team fighting. So I won't delve too much further into this one. The next one is supports, follow-up/utility. And supports are actually pretty flexible in what they do. You have heroes that are almost purely defensive, and heroes that are very, very offensive. For example, Lina and Lesh are pretty offensive, and Omni Knight is a pretty defensive hero. And what do? They do a little bit of everything. They will create space for your early game to farm. They'll apply pressure at points around the map, but not as much as like a Chen or a Wisp, let's say. They will still apply pressure with smokes. They will ensure your late game farm by creep pulling and stacking. They will ward, deward. Some people jokingly call them map control technicians because all they seemingly do is sort of gain map control through the use of wards and smokes, but that is not necessarily true. They can gank, counter gank with the use of TP scrolls or proper positioning, and they can help your heroes scale well into late game. Shadow Demon, Keeper of the Light, and Rubik are the three that come to mind. Rubik is just one of those ridiculous heroes. He's great in team fight. He's great in lane control. He has pretty good AoE. And he has Null Field. Null Field is the 20% magic reduction aura, and that's actually a little bit underrated. But I couldn't put him in any of the other categories, so I had to create a category all of its own. Again, supports follow-up utility. Sometimes you have a Magnus RP and you catch 5 of them, but if you don't have any damage follow-up, you might still lose a team fight. So that's what a hero like Leshrac is for, or Keeper of the Light with his 500 damage Illuminate, or whatever it is. And then a hero like Shadow Demon can make sure that your late game's even more potent. So you can have a PL army from the PL, and then you can have a PL army from the Shadow Demon. Or if they get caught by a Bat Rider or Beastmaster Roar or even an RP, you can just disrupt them and just completely turn around the team fight. So supports are just a little bit of everything. And that finished up the core 4, but I will talk more about that after I talk about the last 2. So the last 2, these are more advanced. And for drafters, I would tend to shy away from these, but you should still be aware of them. So situational picks, and these are to achieve a certain game goal. For example, Lycanthrope, you can take out Roshan with them early, or you can just employ a push strategy and hopefully win in like 20 minutes. And Warlock is a very situational pick too. He's a very, very long cooldown ultimate, so he's really good for team fights and AoE, but he's a little bit weak because of that really long cooldown. He's very somewhat easily gankable, especially without items. He can also like heal your late game carry up to kind of support the main lane. So he has this like dual sort of role, and he can push really well. So he does a little bit of everything. And if you have a really one focus on your lineup, for example, early push with like Rasta Wards and Furion and Panda and Shen and Warlock, for example, just one I just thought off the top of my head. These are you need situational picks to fill in the rest of your roster to achieve a certain game goal. But it's not only pushing. You can also have a 5-man gank strat. You can have like Beastmaster solo mid with his roar, and for the Hawk for vision, you can have Bounty Hunter in the off lane, and then instead of a really, really hard carry in your safe lane, like Anti-Mage or Phantom Lancer, you can go a one that can actually gank a lot, like Nakes and Gyrocopter, along with two very aggressive supports like Shadow Demon and Leshrac. And again, these situational picks such as Beastmaster, such as Bounty Hunter, will achieve your certain game goal of getting a lot of kills, or whatever it may be. But in general, people like very balanced lineups that aren't too polarizing. And the last one is counter picks, and it's very simple as to what they do. They thwart an enemy strategy or pick, and there's like a wide variety of counter picks. It can be as simple as like, okay, Keeper of the Light just owns push strats because of Illuminate, or Nyx owns Queen of Pain because of the Mana Burn, or it can just be very, very specific, like AM with Empower to handle a Phantom Lancer. We have seen this a couple of times in competitive play. Disruptor versus Wisp. If they try to relocate, you just send them back and then just pick off whoever's alone. Very simple. You have Bounty Hunter with his track, very obvious, deals with Invis heroes, and again, you have heroes like SD to just deal with everything. For example, I think SD is very good versus a Bat Rider. If he blinks in and lassos one of your teammates, you can just disrupt him and pretty much just negate his ultimate, and that's countering in itself. SD also somewhat counters PL because he can make his own PL army. He can somewhat counter Anti-Mage and make those illusions that do a lot of feedback damage. And again, there aren't really set roles in Dota. I don't really like to think of him as set roles. SD was like a support, but he can also be a counter pick. He can work in like some ganker strategies as well if you have aggressive follow-up like Kunko or Alk Stun or Lesh Stun, anything like that. So again, going back to the core 4+2, when you lose a game, you really want to know why you lost the game. Did you lack late game, for example? Did you just have 5 int heroes and then just get rolled because the game just simply went past 30 minutes? Did you not find enough space for anyone to farm? You're pretty much as limited to like 15% of the map. Is that the case? If so, you probably need more space creators or better players to play them. Did you lack teamfight initiation? Were you winning in the early game, maybe like a 20-5 score, but once it came 5-on-5, you just lost every team fight? This is probably where you're lacking on. Maybe you need to throw in a Magnus into your lineup, or something as simple as a Tidehunter. And where else were you lacking? If it's just a little bit of everything and just lacking a movement around the map, lacking of vision, so your space creators can't create space. Maybe you just don't have enough follow-up for your teamfight initiation. You may be lacking in support/utility. So again, it's all these, they aren't really separate. I don't really like how it's listed here that they're all like really separate circles, but I think they should, like kind of like a Venn diagram, they all coexist a little bit. And like if you have weak supports and utility, you're going to have weak space creators too. If you have weak space creators, you're going to have weak late game. And if you have weak teamfight and initiation, you're going to have weak late game too. So it's a little bit of everything, and all these are really important. And whether you win or you lose, you should still try and identify what went wrong and what in these core 4 really happened. And it could be as simple as, yeah, we don't have enough team fight, but this is more for competitive play and pub mentality. I don't really like to think of it in this manner, but if I had to break it down, I would break it down into these 6. So thanks everybody for paying attention to this week's mailbag. I do this every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. If you have any further questions, you can mail me at mailbag@merlinidota.com, and don't forget to follow me on YouTube if you like these presentations. Thanks and have a good night, everybody.